following video is technically a part 3 to a series that I didn't think I'd be making. Part 1 of this series was talking about the Daydream Believers biopic, which was the biopic about the Monkees that was made for TV by VH1. Part 2 was me interviewing my friends about the biopic. This is part 3, talking about the Monkees musical, which would make you think, oh, I made a biopic musical. Nah, babes. It's as bad as you think it is. All right, I know we had a lot of biopic musicals before. Carole King, Tina Turner. We've also had jukebox ones, which will be mentioned in this video. Jukebox musicals, Alanis Morissette's musical, American Idiot, Tommy. Even that movie Across the Universe counts as a jukebox musical because it's a movie, but, you know, stuff like that. But we've talked about, what we haven't talked about, or have we? We've technically discussed jukebox musicals on this channel with talking about American Idiot and briefly mentioning Tommy, and we haven't really talked about biopic musicals, but today is not one of them days, unfortunately. You would think this would be a biopic musical, but the plot isn't plotting as a biopic. So, wow, I'm so ready to get tortured over something I don't like this already.
A true story. I woke up this morning, right? Got out of bed. I had to go to the bathroom. When I opened the door, guess what I seen? A monkey. I started about this song. I won't sing about this monkey. There's a monkey in my bathroom. Please get that bitch a banana.
Man, this is the best song ever. This is peak, bro. This song, man, it's getting me in the feels. This is really tugging at the heartstrings. Huh? What the heck is this notification? I'm trying to watch a song about a monkey. Come on now. Oh, I might as well click on it. Monkey Business the Musical. Oh, is this a musical about the Monkees? Oh man, I've been wanting a musical about the Monkees. Let's watch this video.
Here we come, walking down the street. We get the funniest looks from everyone we meet. Hey, hey, we're the Monkees. People say we monkey around, but we're too busy singing to put anybody down. We go wherever we want to, do what we like to do.
What? What the fuck?
So, I didn't think I'd be making a part 3 to 2 videos I made about a bad biopic. And as I said in my Daydream Believers video, I have seen bad biopics. I even mentioned in the interview I did with my friends. I have seen pretty bad ones, but I've never once talked about a bad jukebox musical. I don't at least think I have, because I've talked so highly about American Idiot, and I haven't mentioned on the channel, but I think Jagged Little Pill was pretty good. So you can imagine how frustrated I was when I found this musical and thought, oh, it'll be good, only to turn out to be wrong, which made me even more upset because I don't like that at all. So, today, we'll be talking about a really
2 hours later.
really bad jukebox biopic. Monkey Business the Musical. Now, that kind of title will make you confused because the Monkees have a compilation album called Monkey Business. But rest assured, this is anything but like the compilation album. Although you could argue it is like the compilation album because this is a jukebox musical. So, let's get into everything about Monkey Business the Musical.
Here we come, walking down the street.
So, what exactly is the plot of this supposed jukebox musical? Because it's not a biopic musical. Because, you know, if it was, the plot wouldn't be so fucking weird. The plot of this weird musical is that four innocent boys fall prey to an evil record producer and are tricked into impersonating one of the biggest bands in the world. As they struggle to conceal their own personalities, a frantic world tour leads to entanglements with a harem of sexy Russian spies, an army of tower beefeaters, and a railway carriage full of nuns. Totally far out. Before we get into the cast of the musical, it's important to note that the Monkey Business musical had a limited engagement at the Manchester Opera House, which concludes April 14th. The musical then played at the Glasgow King's Theatre from April 17th to April 21st, and the Sunderland Empire from April 24th to April 28th. Wow, a day before my birthday. How fucking wonderful. It's also worth noting before we get into the cast that the Manchester run of the Monkey Business musical was dedicated to the late Davy Jones. Yes, this musical came out in 2012. And yes, I guarantee you, I don't even know. Okay? I don't even know. Do I even know if the Monkees themselves saw this musical? No, I don't know. I don't know. Okay? I don't know. And another weird thing before we get into the cast, the show was built a madcap Austin Powers style adventure. What the fuck does that even mean?
We get the funniest looks from everyone we meet.
I don't know if I should mention this as we get into the cast of the musical, but like, please don't make fun of the actors. The actors try their best when it comes to the roles they're given. Like, they're not even playing the Monkees. That's the thing. They're playing people impersonating the Monkees. That's like a harder pill to swallow. Also, this musical came out in 2012. It's been years since that musical came out. I don't think there's any interest in it coming back ever. Because, and all of these actors are doing their own thing now. So, like, yeah, I don't blame these actors for, playing their parts because they're not even playing the Monkees. So keep that in mind as we get into the cast of the musical. I don't know why I'm mentioning this. I feel like I have to because, like, the internet nowadays, no offense, but we just like to, yell at people for playing a certain role. Like, how everyone is, like, happy people for The Last of Us are worried about the woman playing Abby, and the other half are like, oh, we don't like her already. But then I'm part of the half that's like, I'm worried about this woman playing this woman, I'm worried about it and stuff like that. So, please keep that in mind. First of all, here are the characters. We have Chuck, William, Andy, and Mark. These are the guys pretending to be Davy, Peter, Mickey, and Mike. Now, here are the guys playing the guys pretending to be the guys. It's a bit of a mouthful, but bear with me. Ben Evans is Chuck pretending to be Davy. Oliver Sayville is William pretending to be Peter. Stephen Kerwin is Andy pretending to be Mickey. And Tom Parsons is Mark pretending to be Mike. Ben has been in a bunch of West End productions of musicals like Jersey Boys, Les Mis, Oliver, Mamma Mia, and The Lord of the Rings. I did not know Lord of the Rings was a musical or even a play. And it's kind of funny that he's in Oliver, or wasn't Oliver, because he's trying to be a guy who wasn't Oliver, so it's a bit ironic. Editing Amy coming in here to mention that this will be mentioned in a video I'll make about Davy being an Oliver, but Davy was an Oliver like a bunch of times. Like after the Monkees ended, he went back to be as the Artful Dodger, and I think eventually in the 80s or 90s he came back to Oliver once again, but not playing the Artful Dodger because he got too old, but instead as the Artful Dodger's boss Fagin. And also, Davy played the Artful Dodger in the 1974 animated Oliver movie. He couldn't play him in the very first movie version of Oliver because, he was too old, and also the Monkees, and they needed children, and Dave's not a child anymore, but he's played the Artful Dodger a bunch of times. Oliver Sayville made his professional debut in the UK tour of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and when this article came out, he was recently touring the world in the international tour of Mamma Mia. A bit ironic that most of these guys were in Mamma Mia, except for Stephen Kerwin, but we're getting into him right now. Stephen Kerwin made his West End debut in Cameron Mackintosh's Mary Poppins. He's also toured the UK in Fiddler on the Roof and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Kind of funny that three guys, I think, were in that. No, two guys were in it. I was wrong. Well. Anyways, he's also most recently appeared as Claude in the European tour of Hair, but that's long past because this article came out in 2012. But, anyways. Tom Parsons might be a familiar name to all of you because he was in the West End version of Mamma Mia, and according to this article, but at the time this came out, recently was Nicky slash Chucky in Avenue Q. If any of you have seen him in Avenue Q, let me know how he is, because I don't know the rest of these guys, and Avenue Q is the only thing I care about because it's so funny. It's like an adult version of the Muppet Show, which I think they wanted that, but they never got that, and stuff like that.
Hey, hey, we're the Monkees. People say we monkey around.
Here's where things get a bit complicated. I can't exactly review the musical, and that'll be explained more in the second part, which of this video right now is the, slime tutorial part of the video that we're going to get into after talking about this part of the video. But I have two reviews about this musical that I figure I'll use for my thoughts on the musical because I agree with some of the points that both of these people have written. So let's get into the first one by the confidentials.com and then make our way to one apostrophe wordpress.com with an article written by Stephen Farrow. So let's talk about the confidential ones first. The idea for Monkey Business the Musical came to writer Peter Benedict, he claims, when, in order to liven up a lengthy car journey with a bunch of theatricals, he randomly purchased a Monkees compilation CD and was surprised to find that everyone young and old knew those songs. So a show built around said songs couldn't go wrong, right? Well, wrong actually in this case. Jukebox musicals are pretty desperate proposition anyway. So as far as this punter is concerned, but I'm prepared to grudgingly admit they can be fun if you really love the songs and simply want to sing along to a bunch of other people singing them. This part I agree with. Jukebox musicals are sometimes hit or miss, but they can be really good sometimes if you use them properly. Anyways, tribute bands make their living from that, and astonishingly, several of them can fill arenas these days. When it comes to the Monkees, though, while people might well know and even love some of the songs, much of the rest of their output isn't necessarily that familiar, as demonstrated by the slightly puzzled reaction at the world premiere night to the likes of The Girl I Knew Somewhere and What Am I Doing Hanging Around? And a quote we have here is, "This particular show seems especially clumsy when the real monkey story is so remarkable that you couldn't make it up. The fact that these songs are shoehorned into a plot that threads a fine line between nonsensical and non-existent doesn't help either. After apparently miming to the Monkees theme to open the show and warm up the crowd, which I thought was a decent postmodernist gag, only to be sternly informed that the band really do sing live throughout, Chuck, Andy, Mark, and William are improbably and preemptively, I'm not good at reading, guys, I swear to God, hoodwinked at the not at all stereotypical manager Joey Finkelstein into embarking on a world tour pretending to be the original boy band The Monkees themselves, a bunch of actors put together for a TV show. All they have to do is pull this off, apparently, is to put on the outfits and make sure they would stay a long away from the adoring fans who, after all, would get to see the real Davy, Mickey, Mike, and Peter all the time on TV. So our good-hearted but apparently dim-witted heroes set off on a train from Clarksville, arriving at Pleasant Valley on a Sunday. You get the idea, I'm sure. Wow, if that was in the show, I would hate it. Later on, too much later on, there's even a jesting reference to this sort of crassiness, but by then, the damage had already been done, especially as by the time they've even resorted to nicking other bands' tunes, including the Beatles' Back to the USSR, when the band fly to Russia for some highly unlikely plot reason. This strikes me as a pretty expensive and weak gag, given how notoriously legitist Apple are. Or have I grossly underestimated the production, and this is actually a convoluted Chuck Berry joke? Somehow, I suspect not when the cartoonish Russian femme fatale spy is dubbed Nikita Smirnov, played with some relish by Michelle Bishop. Actually, the supporting cast are rather all good, even when called upon to be ignoramusously playing singing nuns. Who really thought that squeezing Dominique into the plot was a hilarious idea? Or that the younger audience members would recognize it anyway? Or Lollipop Ladies. Ditto my boy Lollipop. There's nothing necessarily wrong with a musical plotline being silly and anachronistic, just like a Hairspray, but the constant nudges and winks that these are just innocent kids in those crazy 60s quickly gets tiresome here, especially when we actually seem to be stuck in the 60s that owes more than a little to the revisionist and also not very funny Austin Powers. I don't want to get all musical nerd here, and I understand that licensing rights would almost certainly be paid to any such thing, but this is a particular show seems especially clumsy when the real monkey story is so remarkable that you couldn't make it up. Put together auditions in Los Angeles for a TV show designed to cash in one of the huge US success of the Beatles. Does this concept sound at all familiar? Davy, the former star of Oliver, Mike, a Texan bohemian, child star Mickey, and Peter Tork, a proto-hippie, turned into a bona fide phenomenon with an enormously successful TV show and huge hit records crafted by the finest songwriters and musicians money could buy. Stephen Stills was just one of the many hopefuls turned down at the audition, although, contrary to popular mythology, mass murderer Charles Manson wasn't. Huh? The article then goes on to mention that the Monkees insisted on making their own albums, and they toured with Jimi Hendrix, and they made Head, and yada yada yada. So let's keep going with that. Sounds like a great film or even stage show, doesn't it? But Monkey Business is not that show, says Benedict. This isn't about the Monkees.
What? What the fuck? What the? Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck?
It's not about the TV show extended to 2 hours, and it's not like the life story of the Monkees or their various members. This is about the music. I did actually start writing that monkey story until I realized it just wasn't a musical. It's very complicated and there'd be too much downbeat stuff in it, he admits. If people want the story of the Monkees, they can read the various books. I'm writing a musical which has a story with the fun in it that you can have if you're telling the real story. Well, if he's entitled to believe that, and to be fair, things do pick up in the second half, opening with the multinational melody of the Monkees theme and relying less on the songs to advance the plot. This is the third show under the Manchester Gets It First banner after the hugely successful Ghost and Zach Braff's All New People. Obviously, it's a commendable initiative, and it was touching to dedicate the show to the late Davy Jones, especially with some of his family in the audience. Oh, I feel so sorry for them. But sorry, guys. Manchester Gets It First isn't and shouldn't mean simply a glorified dress rehearsal for a show that needs as much tightening and livening up as does Monkey Business. Now let's get into the next review written by Stephen Farrell called Monkey Poop. Highly appropriate for this though, not gonna lie. Not gonna lie, very highly appropriate for this. 23 songs, 25 scenes, 20 actors, 7 musicians, 2 acts, spies, Russian American and British, 3 singing nuns, and maybe half a joke. Yes, folks, I sat through Monkey Business the musical, a jukebox musical based on the music of the Monkees, which is now lumbering through the third week of a trial run at the Manchester Opera House, at the time of this being written in 2012 on April 12th. In time, I hope the memories will fade, the scars will begin to heal, and I'll stop having nightmares. I mean, it's true, no one even knows about this. So, me talking about it is kind of reopening some wounds, isn't it? I apologize to anyone who's seen the musical. The show is being presented in Manchester under an initiative called Manchester Gets It First, which was created by the Ambassador Theatre Group in an attempt to position Manchester as the UK's preeminent tryout city for large commercial theatrical productions. Presumably something violently unpleasant happened to one of the ATG's executives somewhere in Manchester on the evidence of this show and the dismal Ghost, which premiered here last year. Okay, first of all, Ghost fucking slaps. It's a good musical. I don't want to hear it. Ghost is about that movie by Patrick Swayze. So I don't want to hear any bad shit about Ghost. That movie fucking that show fucking slapped. The setting up of this program in Manchester can only be construed as an act of bitter revenge. It's not, actually, that I think a jukebox musical based mostly on the back catalog of the Monkees is an inherently stupid idea. It's just that this jukebox musical based mostly on the back catalog of the Monkees is built around an inherently stupid idea. We're in 1968 at the height of the Monkees' fame. A concert promoter hires 4 lookalikes to tour Russia, Japan, Italy, Spain, France, and England as the Monkees because the bands themselves are too busy to make the trip, and wacky hijinks ensue, involving spies, singing nuns, yes, they sing Dominique, and oh, who cares? It's not as if any of it makes sense while you're watching it either. It wouldn't matter at all that the plot doesn't make sense, of course, if any of it actually made you laugh at all. The Monkees original TV series was entirely built around this kind of outlandishly farcical plotline. It was consistently fresh and funny. Monkey Business, the musical, is neither. It's still than a 2-month-old Danish, and about as funny as a migraine. The show's book was perpetuated by Peter Benedict, who should know better. I refuse to say he wrote it, because the mess of a musical that's currently stillborn on the Opera House's stage strongly suggests that, rather than write the show, Mr. Benedict simply spat into a napkin after eating bad shellfish. It's not just that the jokes don't land. There are no jokes. There are running ungags about how improbable future inventions like Starbucks, mobile phones, and Twitter seem from the perspective of 1968, and even less unfunny gags in which characters on stage periodically break the fourth wall to comment on the artificiality of theatrical performance, and by the miracle of theatrical design. We're there already! Which, first of all, only the Monkees are allowed to break the fourth wall, not these fakers! Contained in scenes which seem to start and stop rather than begin and end, and which ever don't add up to anything you can call a coherent plot, punctuated by miscued songs. Structurally, the show isn't just a mess, it's an apocalypse with concert lighting, cheap sets, and a band. Now, as I've mentioned in the beginning of this video, or in the video, you can't really blame the actors, who do their best with the horrendous material. The 4 actors playing the fake Monkees, Ben Evans, Stephen Kerwin, Tom Parsons, and Oliver Sayville, I said Orville, also Tom Parsons is giving the best performance in the show, according to this writer, do their best to sell the awful script, and sometimes nearly succeed, and in their musical numbers, they're legitimately terrific. When they're singing, they do manage to capture the original band's infectious sense of fun, and it's mostly the performances of the songs that kept me from running screaming from the theater in search of brain bleach when the interval rolled around. The supporting casts don't fare as well, most because they don't get to sing as much. Tony Timberlake struggles manfully with the series of not very funny comedic cameo roles, and has fun duetting with Kerwin's Mickey Dolenz on Randy Scout's Get in the first act. Oh my god, they butchered my favorite song, no! Michelle Bishop lumbered with playing a Russian spy named Nikita Smirnov, I know, and that's about as funny as the show gets. Does a good job of slinking around in leather and singing the Beatles back in the USSR. Why? It is her fault that there's more laughs in the last 10 minutes of Medea than she manages to raise in this. She clearly has excellent comedic timing, but she's given nothing to use it on. Scarlett Douglas plays a traffic warden and sings My Boy Lollipop. I hope she knows why, because I don't. Cassandra Compton, similarly, does a really good job with her big number, You Don't Have to Say You Love Me. The Monkees were not big on solo songs for women. But despite her best efforts, she can't manage to sell a role that stubbornly refuses to make any kind of sense. And that's true more or less of the rest of the cast. When they sing, even given the musical staging is usually uninspiring, the show starts to come to life, but then the song ends and dies again, and the cast can't resuscitate it because there was no life in the script to begin with. Usually, even in the usually reliable Lena Haft, is defeated by the role of the promoter. I know he can be funny. I've seen him do it before. But all he's given here is a series of shyster stereotypes and the weakest catchphrase ever written. You wouldn't like it, and it isn't enough. None of the actors are helped by the show's director, David Taylor, whose work is rudimentary, meaning it has most rises to the level of Peter Benedict's book. This kind of show needs pace and energy, and he gives it neither. It just sort of sits there, which means there's no comedic momentum whatsoever, which leaves you, unfortunately, with ample time to contemplate the many, many shortcomings in the writing, and the person seated about 10 rows in front of me who was texting all the way through Act 2. Again, I know he's done good work before, even in comedy, because I've seen it. Presumably, for some reason, he chose not to here. Morgan Large's costumes, straight out of Austin Powers. A far funny take on the same milieu are sometimes witty and his set, which consistently mostly have cutout buildings that look like something from a pop-up art pop-up book, demonstrate that at least someone involved in the show had some resembling of an idea. What he didn't get is much of a budget. The set looks cheap, although the costumes don't. The lighting, by James Whiteside, is appropriately lurid. The band, led by Richard Beadle, whatever, are excellent, and so is Clem Rollin's sound design. It's a rock musical, so it's loud, but you can't actually hear all of the lyrics, even in the ensemble numbers. That doesn't happen as often as you think, and the Monkees songs, in fact, do stand up do stand to the jukebox musical treatment, even when they're surrounded by a show that's mostly really, really terrible. They are strong, surprisingly durable throughout entire entertaining pop classics that still sound fresh and fun 40-odd years after they were first released. It's easy to see the attraction in building a jukebox musical around them, and it's a great shame that this production's creative personnel have so thoroughly botched the show they've created. I mean, really, at times I find myself longing for the wit and subtlety of Ben Elton's book for We Will Rock You, which is possibly the most appallingly crass, long-running hit musical London will ever see. I think it's the musical for Queen. Anyways, this is the first trial run, of course, so there's theoretically time for work to be done, but as you could tell from that previous article, they were in their third run and they still were doing bad. But the odds of this succeeding are not good. The theater was less than a quarter full, and the show's third booking in Sunderland has been cancelled due to poor ticket sales, and Glasgow's performances next week are going ahead, although a glance at the King's Theatre website suggests that the ticket sales there are also pretty dire. Clearly, it needs a major overhaul if it's ever going to reach the West End, or at the end of next week. Firing Mr. Taylor and Mr. Benedict would be a good place to start, because what this show smacks of, more than anything else, is cynical people who should know better turning in fifth-rate work on a show they intend to palm off a provincial audience that they condescendingly assume will buy whatever direct they chose to sell, as long as it comes packaged with familiar songs, attractive performers, and a flashy light show. The actors and band deserve better, and should run Mr. Taylor and Mr. Benedict out of the theater, possibly with pitchforks and burning torches, for straining them in this mess. But hey, at least Manchester gets it first, Glasgow. You've been warned.
We're too busy singing to put anybody down.
Like I said, I can't entirely judge the musical, given that I have little full footage to look at. There isn't any slime tutorial of this musical, which makes me wonder, how bad was it that no one even bothered to just record the show? I mean, first of all, if it's that bad, you'd want people to see how bad it is, right? You'd want people to judge. I mean, granted, it was 2012. I don't even know if there were that many slime tutorials back then. I mean, there were, but like, I don't entirely blame people for not wanting to record this show, as there is only a 1-minute video on YouTube that's basically a trailer that shows everything in this musical, which everything in this musical is monkey shit, and that is really tragic. Based on the pictures and what little video evidence we have, I would say that this musical might as well be monkey poop. With the reviews I've read, I would wholeheartedly say they fucked up with the shoebox musical, but I'm not saying I could make a better one, although, or could I? Ooh, it's a good idea. It's a good idea. Think about it later, though. So, that's the end of the video. This video took way too long to make. I hoped to release it some other time, but how ironic and convenient that this is coming out on Davy Jones's death anniversary. I wanted to make an Oliver video on that day, but technically the Manchester run of this musical was dedicated to Davy Jones, so it's a full circle moment. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Comment down below anything you want. I'll try to do it. If I can. There's not much I could probably do. You know, small YouTuber and stuff. And, cheers to Davy Jones. My can of ginger ale. Ooh.
Go wherever we want to, do what we like to do. We don't have time to get restless. There's always something new. Hey, hey, we're the Monkees. People say we monkey around, but we're too busy singing to put anybody down. We just try to be friendly, come and watch us sing and play. But we're the young generation, and we got something to say. Anytime or anywhere, just look over your shoulder, 'cause you'll be standing there. Hey, hey, we're the Monkees, and people say we monkey around, but we're too busy singing to put anybody down. We just try